So, what do we have here? Who is this scary, mysterious, checkered masked man who looks like he's having a hard time breathing through that little tiny hole in his bed? Who is this man? I have actually been subscribed to this individual for a little bit over a year. And he's not creepy, he's actually very friendly. Say hi, Anti.Prophet! He's not creepy, he's actually very friendly, okay? And he's the most awesome and most wholesome masked man in all of freaking YouTube. What am I doing with my life? Anyways. Look, here's the thing. You think I do some weird shenanigans? Bro, you should see me in real life. Anyways, we're gonna watch this uncreepy, most wholesome individual named Anti.Prophet actually take does his take on what Trump does in the government. Keep in mind, this man has 1-point-something million subscribers, like 1.6 or something like that. So yeah, let's give a listen to this man.
Uncovering fraud in the government, whether it's USAID, whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's the upcoming Pentagon audit. This has become a very emotional issue for people on the...
Oh yeah, I just came across a video, like, I think a couple days ago, where somebody wanted to have Elon Musk reorganize the Pentagon and rebuild it as a trigon?
Pete Heck says his welcome DOGE to come into the military. We have to start in the Pentagon. We need to make a trigon, 3 sides instead of 5 sides in the Pentagon. It is way too big.
This was his words, not anybody else. It's like, what the fuck is a trigon? Don't you mean a triangle? What the hell is a trigon? That's the name of an anime character. I know that for sure. A trigon. Yeah, moving along.
Left on the right. And I think with people on the right, the main argument there is essentially, why would Democrats be so scared about this unless they had something to hide? And I think people on the left are probably saying this is a real constitutional crisis. The executive does not have the right to cut programs. I think the purpose of this...
Yeah, I get that sentiment a lot. Even with my reacts to Brian Tyler, I get that, like, oh, it's a constitutional crisis and stuff like that. Which, to be fair, it does seem like it's a constitutional crisis, but how many times has Donald Trump actually ended up compromising and ignoring the integrity of the Constitution? And yet, for some odd reason, the courts don't do anything about it? I think we have a hole in the system, people.
This video, the one that you're watching right now, is to explore this conversation back and forth in an unemotional way. It's to really kind of take a look at, what does Congress have the right to do? What does the executive branch have the right to do?
Okay, so I think, here's the thing. I've been noticing lately that a lot of people nowadays don't really understand what the branches of government do. Yeah, this whole, this entire Generation Z, I don't think even understand, people of my generation. I was born in 1984. Okay, and I was taught about what the executive and legislative and judicial branches do. Okay, and there's a concept of checks and balances. But I think what got lost in the sauce was the new generation that is currently living in the United States right now, that is going off on TikTok, like freaking what is it called? Cocomelon users or Cocomelon watchers are having this unhinged set of opinions. Okay, it pertains to even Brett Cooper. Okay, people like Brett Cooper, people like Hassan Piker, they all fall into this category of I don't think they realize how the system works, what they're supposed to do, and so on and so forth. Because amongst all the rambling that these people are doing between each other is useless jargon without complete understanding of what the heck is going on behind closed doors and what the system is supposed to be doing. Yet they somehow claim they know what the system does, but they still have some like this weird conspiracy kind of like God complex / victimhood mentality about citizenship, the government, education, stuff like that, healthcare, whatever the case may be. But in this case, we're talking about the 3 branches of government, and I don't really know if everybody completely understands what they do. So we're going to let this man cook a little bit more.
And I think to start off with, we have to create some clarity around what Trump himself is saying when it comes to the types of things that they're discovering as a result of the DOGE efforts being taken on by Elon Musk. He's saying there's frauds. He's saying that there are fraudulent programs. He's saying that there are programs that are being funded that shouldn't be funded.
And then there comes the argument of waste and mismanaged dollars. I don't think anybody can disagree that there is some level of waste and fraud to some extent. But the way that both the left and the right are putting it in context gives a sense of fear-mongering. And it targets the human emotion too much that people just don't stop and think like, wait a second, this sounds sus. Maybe I'll go check up with it. But people just run with their emotions. And they follow their emotions, and they follow like a fight or flight response. And they go crazy. And yet a lot of these people, this happens more with Gen Z. This is happening more with Gen Z. It's not happening with like older generations, like my generation. It doesn't happen. Because we stop and ask ourselves, like, okay, this sounds sus. Like, fairly quickly, within 10 to 15 minutes, we're just like, oh, okay, well, we'll shut the fuck up. We won't say anything. We think this is sus. We're going to fact check this. Right? But a lot of the time, even the political channels, like Brett Cooper and Amala Ekenoboyi and the cast of and the cast of what is it called of the Daily Wire, they're part of like the newer generation, right? Except maybe for that bearded guy on the Daily Wire, which he's been known to. Let's just face it, he's just an idiot. Okay, I think everybody knows that he's an idiot, and I think a lot of people are just like laughing at the man at this point in time. Okay, even after the so-called film that he made, the documentary film that he made is like, what is a woman? Kind of put a spiral out of control mentality about what the heck is going on. All right, let's continue.
So from here, we have to kind of make the point that, you know, 2 statements are being made there. There's fraud, and there are programs that are being funded that shouldn't be funded. So just so you guys don't think that I'm putting words into Trump's mouth, let's hear what he has to say in his own words.
We have to solve the efficiency problem. We have to solve the fraud, waste, abuse, all the things that have gone into the government. You take a look at the...
Again, I don't think people are disagreeing with this. But what I do disagree with is the way it's being handled. Because these people, they think measles is caused by aliens. I know that's a little bit of an extreme statement. I get it. Okay, but it's just like an example. It's like aliens, not illegal aliens from across the country. No, I'm talking about like Martians and spaceships that you see in the movies with antennae. They see and they say, "Take me to your leader." Those type of aliens that cause the measles.
The USAID, the kind of fraud in there, that
and you
where
found
the money's
significant
going.
things.
Well, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of money that's going to places where it shouldn't be going. Where, if I read a list.
Okay, so right there, again, you hear him talk about fraud, and then he talks about money going to places where it shouldn't be going. There are two statements, two claims being made here. The fraud claim, and money is going to places where it shouldn't. So when it comes to fraud, if there is genuine fraud found inside of the U.S. government's spending, then it makes 100% sense for prosecution to be brought forth. This is a criminal matter at the end of the day. If people are defrauding the U.S. government, like let's say you do that in any other sector, you could do that, like you defraud the IRS by underreporting your income, or you participate in welfare fraud. These are criminal problems. You can't do this. And as a result of that to me is one of the main questions that I have. If you're finding fraud, why are you not pursuing it criminally? The other claim that he's...
Yeah, I keep hearing this. It's like, there's fraud. And there's fraud in this, and there's fraud in that. So why isn't the Supreme Court involved in this? Like, if this was like a major claim, why aren't they... Why isn't Donald Trump and DOGE and Elon Musk filing a subpoena to these individuals to fight in the United States Supreme Court? It just doesn't make any freaking sense. You never heard the news about the Supreme Court getting involved in cases of defrauding the American people now, do you? No, I don't think so.
He's making is money is going to places that he doesn't like. Okay, fine. If that's the case, then your legal pathway to changing that is to get Congress to change it. That's how the separation of powers works. Congress has the power of the purse, and the executive's job is to go in and distribute the money that Congress determines should be spent, that it approves. That's how the Constitution works. However, we're in a situation here where, again, the two claim, not to beat a dead horse, but the two claims being made is that there's fraud and that money is going to places that he doesn't like. But criminal prosecution and a petitioning of Congress, neither of those two things are happening. The executive is instead just choosing not to pay the bills and not to fund the parts of the government that it doesn't like. That is not a legal strategy. It just isn't. I'm sorry. There are two perfectly valid legal strategies here to deal with things that are perhaps, genuine fraud. This would be a big, huge political win on the side of the Trump administration if they were to be able to bring criminal charges against parts of the government that were being defrauded. That would be a...
Which begs the question. It's like, okay, if they're not doing this the legal way, what is the purpose of making the claims of defrauding the government and allowing Donald Trump, which overreaches and overrides the constitutional obligations of the congressional branch, to get involved to oversee the claim that there's fraud, and say, okay, you can do this, blah blah blah, that, oh, we have documentation, blah blah blah. Why are they ignoring it? There has to be something else that they're doing. Clearly they're doing something else. There's more than just the claim of fraud and all this other stuff. If they're ignoring the whole the process of checks and balances.
a huge political win, but it's not happening. And on top of that, there's been no petitioning of Congress when it comes to anything like the Department of Education, USAID. All of this is being done through executive order, it's illegal. There's not another way to say that. And
it is actually technically illegal. It is illegal. Even, okay, people are going to be making the argument that says, oh, but the judicial system said that Donald Trump, unless it's like for, Jesus Christ, what were the exact words? But everything that he's doing, the way he's wording these bills and these executive orders is going up against what the congressional judge, the judicial system allowed him to do. So now the courts are getting involved. A lot of courts are getting involved with states and stuff like that, right? But it hasn't reached has the Supreme Court actually ended up going and taking some of these cases? I don't think they are. From what I understand, the Supreme Court is like bogged down with a bunch of other cases that they can't deal with the Trump administration's shenanigans. They know it's a problem, but they have other cases that they want to deal with. And I think that's why the Trump administration is doing what they're doing with the executive orders, because Trump knows that the United States Supreme Court is not going to be able to, in time, in the 4-year span that he is in office, to be able to take on these cases that the states are taking on. Right? So he knows this. And some states are losing the battle, some states are winning the battle.
You are thinking to yourself, well, ultimately, the executive has the right to determine what funds to pay out once Congress has approved those funds to be paid out. You're actually incorrect. The courts have already decided that the executive has to pay out the money that Congress has allocated. This was decided in a court case by the name of Train v. State of New York from 1975. And the background of this case is that in 1972, Congress passed the Federal Water Pollution Control Act amendments, which required the EPA to distribute federal funds to states for water pollution control programs. But the problem here is that Richard Nixon and his administration, they saw this and they were...
Wait, this was during the Nixon administration? Yeah, the Nixon administration was a very intriguing and unique administration. Let's just put it that way.
We're like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not interested in distributing the full amount of money appropriated by Congress. And they argued that they had the right to do this because they argued that the president has the right to impound or withhold funds. And as a result of that claim, this obviously went to the Supreme Court. This was a big potential constitutional crisis. And the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the president has to distribute the funds as Congress intended. And the court found that the law did not give the president...
So, in other words, there's been word that Donald Trump is going to give away $5,000 to everybody, right? And now it was like later on that Trump wants to give away like $1,250 to the American people, right? But here's the funny thing. Based on what he's saying right here, Trump and DOGE cannot do that. Legitimately, they cannot do that without congressional approval.
Discretion to refuse to allocate the full appropriated funds. And the significance here was that, Train v. City of New York reaffirmed Congress's power of the purse, and that the president cannot unilaterally, that's the main word here, unilaterally withhold spending authorized by Congress. It was a key case when it comes to separation of powers and limiting executive impoundment powers. And this ruling was then later, by the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974, turned into an actual law. They didn't just leave this to a judicial ruling. Congress was like, okay, this could potentially be enough of a problem in the future that we need to pass a law to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So again, it wasn't just decided judicially, it was decided legislatively as well. And if you, listening to everything that I just talked about with Train v. City of New York, if all of this bored you and your eyes glazed over, that's a bit of a problem. I would say if that's the case, and what I just said wasn't interesting to you, then, with this particular issue, with any of Trump's executive orders, even if you have an opinion on it internally, maybe don't share that opinion. Because if you're not willing to listen to the actual court cases and what their outcomes were, that's...
And I think that's the problem with the new generation. I honestly think that the new generation this time around was too stupid because Trump lost the 2020 election because people got smart about what he did in 2016 to 2020, right? But he knew that there was a new generation that was coming up. And so he used the platforms of TikTok, which social media was booming just a little bit towards the end of the Trump administration, the first one, and it skyrocketed during the Biden administration, and that's where the stupidity came in, and that's where the whole debacle with the TikTok ban was doing, because the Republicans were trying to spew rhetoric into the impressionistic minds of the Gen Zers so that they would turn against Biden and his administration. And, unironically, the Biden administration didn't help alleviate the view on themselves to the young people that they were not monsters. Okay? But you had TikTok influencing the young generation of Gen Z through TikTok that the Trump administration was trying to get Trump back into office in the 2024 election that just happened. And that he can brainwash and manipulate the impressionistic minds of Gen Z because Gen Z has proven to be stupid AF. Okay. Let's just face it, Gen Zers are stupid AF. And because of them, because of what happened, because of the red pill movement, and because of all that they themselves have promoted. Mind you, they themselves are promoting it. And then you got these other people that are just weird. This also includes people like Andrew Tate. He was also part of this. I don't think he was aware that he was a part of it, but he was influencing this kind of rhetoric. Whether he was being paid for it or not, that stuff hasn't been revealed. So I'm not gonna say that he was secretly being paid by Trump or something like that. No, let's not go here with a tinfoil conspiracy, the quartering Jeremy controversies, okay? We're not going to go there. But it just goes to show that people nowadays, they don't know what they just done. Right? And that's the problem. Why the left isn't seen as a popular thing right now. The only thing that's been uprooted, that's been supported and making the left look like weaklings was people like Destiny, people like Vosh, people like Hassan Piker, even to the extent Dylan Mulvaney, he was kind of up there with kind of the crazy people on the left, and they're trying to say, oh look, the Republicans are like saying, "Oh look, these are these are the people of the Democrats. Oh look at this. They're teaching about transgenderism and illegal or illicit content in schools and stuff like that." Yeah, they posted that up on social media, but actually, how many schools were doing that? No, everybody was like eating up this thing, like, oh, schools are doing drag shows to underage kids and all this other stuff. But you gotta understand one thing: how many of those schools were actually doing it? Just legitimately, how many schools were doing it? The way that the Republicans were painting it is like the majority of schools in America, when maybe it was like maybe about 10 schools at most. 10 schools. And how many schools are in the United States? Let's find that out. Let's find this out. How many schools are in the United States? Uh 128,961 K through 12 schools in the US between the years of 2019 and 2020. So the whole thing, the whole idea that people that made people think, oh, like 64,000 schools were teaching, not 64,000. Okay, that, let's say half of this number, that 44,000 elementary schools were promoting illicit activity and promotion through drag shows and stuff like that, and drag story time and stuff like that. And you see like these explicit content on stages. It's like 44,000? Are you serious? There's 88,000, almost 89,000 schools, elementary schools. And what we saw was probably at best 10 of them. Not even half. This is the number of elementary schools. And you're telling me you're focusing only on a few? And trying to brand the entire school system as this? As weirdo schools. Yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm definitely not buying that. At all. Period. That is actually ridiculous.
That's boring to you or uninteresting, it's probably good to just keep your opinion to yourself, because just like anything else in the world, I used to be a musician. If I have a certain expertise in the realm of, let's say classical composition techniques of German composers in the 1800s, right? Just something really random, obscure, right? I'm probably going to take my opinion on that more seriously than some guitarist who just started taking lessons a week ago who doesn't know anything about music history. Like, that's not a controversial statement to make. Now, the reason it becomes controversial in politics is because the algorithms have basically trained us into thinking that we all have equally valid opinions, and we don't. And that's okay. It doesn't mean anything bad about you. It doesn't mean anything bad about me that I don't fully understand particle physics. I just don't. So I don't really talk about it. You know what I mean? Now, the other thing that you may have thought when I was reading through the details of that case is, well, who cares what the courts and Congress have said? They're corrupt anyway. And I think with this, that's the opinion that you take. If you think that the courts and Congress are rotten beyond saving and that Trump's actions are justifiable, that the executive does in fact have the right to impound funds, to withhold funds, even though the law and the courts have very clearly said that he doesn't, then
I think the court system might be slightly corrupt. Let me explain why. I think the court system might be a little bit slightly corrupt, and why the Supreme Court is kind of like not going to be on the favor of the people is because two of the judges are Trump's yes men. Yeah, two of the judges were Trump's yes men. And there was this whole debate just recently before Trump came into office about a judge stepping down. And the judge was going to end up being replaced by a third Trump judge, which would have really screwed things over for America. Okay, if she had said about 6 weeks before Trump actually ended up taking office, say, okay, I quit, replace me with another judge that is for the people, then Trump wouldn't be able to replace that judge. He just couldn't. He just can't. Not with Congress being involved and the states being involved in all this. So they would just tell Trump, F you, you're not doing this. And he can't. He literally can't. But the judge actually ended up staying. Which, honestly, if I'm going to be real, honestly, I can't decide if that's a big mistake or not. So, yeah.
In my mind, you need to be comfortable saying that you don't believe in the Constitution. Just say it with me out loud. I do not believe in the Constitution of the United States. And mind you,
I do believe in the Constitution of the United States because I think it keeps us grounded and not get into chaos. But there is a bit of a problem because for a number of times, the Constitution that has been amended, including that one period in time where the Constitution has been amended several times in 1 year. It's in order to keep up with the generation and laws and stuff like that. So I think it was because of that time that the Constitution was amended a lot. That's where things really start to take a turn for the worse. But do I think that the Constitution needs to end? No, I don't think the Constitution needs to end. I think the Constitution needs to be rewritten to adhere not to the ideals of the American people, okay, of today, but to be amended in a way that still keeps the original Constitution to a certain extent, but also reword the amendments that were passed a long time ago to be included in the Constitution so that it keeps the Constitution more future-proof. Because the Constitution of the United States technically right now is not future-proof. It just isn't future-proof. But if we create a future-proof Constitution, I get it. Not everybody's going to be happy. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, or centrist. I don't think everybody's going to be happy with the new Constitution. Or a new version of the Constitution. I think there's going to be a lot of people that hate the new version of the Constitution. Because people are not going to take advantage. Because people are not going to say, oh, this doesn't help me. Oh, this doesn't hurt the person that I'm trying to get rid of. And yada, 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 yada. All sorts of stuff. No, the Constitution needs to be unbiased with all parties and be able to utilize the 3 branches of government in a correct way. Okay, no advantages, no nothing at all.
It's okay to feel this way. I'm one of the few content creators online that's going to say, hey, look, if you feel that way, cool. There are valid arguments for why America should be a post-constitutionalist society. I consume a lot of right-wing, anti-liberalism content. Believe you me, conservatives in America have a lot of pretty interesting ideas about why liberalism is a tired and outdated system and that we need to move to something else. If that's what you believe, cool. That's a conversation that we can have. But the thing that you can't say here is that you believe in the Constitution if you completely endorse what Trump is doing here. And the reason I really want to make a point of saying this is because I believe that you are above this type of cognitive dissonance. You're better than this type of cognitive dissonance. And as a result, I'm not going to let you get away with it. So ask yourself this. Do you believe in the Constitution? Or do you think it's time for a new law and order in America?
What he said about law and order in America, if we revamp and overhaul the Constitution and rewrite it to a point where a lot of corrupt officers are not hired, because let's face it, how many times has police officers and police departments been defunded? How many people? How often are police officers hired that are not really qualified, but they are just like thrown in because they need to keep up with the quota? We've seen a lot of like really weird police officers doing some really weird stuff, and they get thrown into doing law and order, upholding the values of the Constitution, allegedly, but they're not taught about the laws clearly and more significantly enough that they can really be able to do their job effectively. They're just thrown in, and then whatever the cop says, and they have the authoritative overreach beyond what is legally theirs. They think that they're the judge, which they're not. They can't do it. And there's plenty of times when the district attorney fires a bunch of cops because they do stupid shit, because the police department is defunded so much and so badly, and they hire a bunch of useless people to ensure that there's a quota of police officers that they can afford to be able to be used in certain populations at a certain number. Right? And that's a bad thing. Right? That's a bad thing. So if we can revamp the Constitution that allows police officers to do their job and actually hire police officers to be trained properly about law and order, what it is that they need to do and how it is that they need to do their job. Okay? And I get it. There's a bunch of idiot sovereign citizens. Okay? They're sovereign citizens, okay? They're idiots. They need to be dealt with, okay? Because they think they're above the law as well, okay? But for an average, normal citizen to be mistreated by police officers is just not cool, man. It's just not cool. So, they really need to revamp everything. So we really need to create a future-proof Constitution. I've been having this feeling ever since the Constitution was amended so many times in 1 year that I knew like 20 years down the road it was not going to survive much longer. Right now it's being band-aided. Like they're just putting a bunch of band-aids on. We can't do that anymore. It's gushing out blood, it's hemorrhaging, and it's stuff like that. It's time for a change.